Hello guys, welcome to Edge. I don't know the number to put to this, but in today's session, we'll be looking at how you guys can handle little tasks, kind of, from the entire project. So the entire project, as you know, involve quite a lot of modules. And before now, we've been handing over features. But what I think we should do is to actually bootstrap the project. What does bootstrap means? Bootstrap means that you should handle things that are like the bare minimal to keep things going. So I'll give you an idea. So let's say you want to get list of employees, right? Like how to display list of employees, API to just display list of employees. You agree with me that that is bare minimal. That is what I want you guys to work on. So display list of employees, display list of job roles, grade class, things that has to do with CRUD, create, delete, edit, and list. But of course, you won't be doing add and delete for now. Most of it, what you just be doing is list. And I think this will build you up technically to start understanding the whole concept than you handling the heavy lifting, because what that does is, even though you're going to learn, you're going to slow down the project. So I will run you through what I've just done so far, and you see what it is that we're doing. And again, it will also put more updates to the MVC we did the other time. That's not MVC, by the way. The model services and controller DTO DT a DAO thing that we did the last time. So I will put more light on it because I also did another style today. You see what I mean by another style? I use another concept, I use another process to it, and there are reasons why I did that. Okay, so let's go to our main.go, right? The entry point of the application, and then we work our way outwards or inwards, anyone that flows. So I go to my other routes, which is, I think that's the new thing I just did, other route. And from other routes, I have notifications. Even though notification is not new, I just added it like a couple of days ago. That's other route. And I've added this one. Where's the one I just added now? Oh yes, I just added this one, announcements. So technically, this is what you guys will be doing for now, creating those endpoints that are fairly easy to do. So it's not gonna cost you guys much. You are not implementing new feature, you're not creating a breaking changes application, right? So these ones are fairly easy to wrap your head around. So let's look at the notification. What we did last time was example, rather employee endpoints that we did. And that was under org chart, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, it's not here. Okay, we did this, I suppose. So let me take you guys through what I did for notifications. We still have the controller thing. By the way, you guys should not forget the flow. We have the controller. The controller creates a service that can be used when I'm calling the controller, and within the service I call the data. That's the data access layer part of the system, and that is the only thing that has the rights to access your database, which is here. So in the implementation of this method, there are reasons why you will want to do something like this, and there are reasons why you will not. So I will typically show you two different things that I did and why I made those decisions. So we're going to be looking at the API controller class, two different API controller class. This is notice. Notice is like notification, right? Notification that goes to users. Later you can study the details. Then let's look at, I'm going to delete all this other one. I like the fact that we gave them this short name. It makes it very easy for me to be able to look at what is going on there. Then let's look at announcements. Now, if you take a look at the two structure, I'm going to separate it like so. This guy should go to the right. One of them can stay to the right. The other one can stay to the left. So if you look at it closely, you will notice that one of them, I created a service, while the other one, let me do up and down, because I really want you guys to pay attention to this section. Move below. Okay. So this is announcements. This must be there. You must first create a type of the controller. The idea of a type is that you want to make this type have a function, member function. In object-oriented programming, it's like you're creating an object, right? So this part is always gonna be there, type of what you want to do. Announcement controller, notification controller, but you need to create a way to initiate it, to instantiate it, right? That's why you have function to create a new instance of it. In this case, you are not returning, you are returning just the guy. You can see that there's nothing wrong here. You just like, oh, you're using this one to create an instance of it, because you can't make use of it without creating it. Okay. Now in this notification part, it's a little bit different. And the difference is that the controller needs a service. But this one, this controller does not need any service. There are reasons why you make that decision. You can create controller without service. You just want to use the controller and then you are good with it. And like the purpose of this is to show you why I made that decision. Okay, good. Let's do a recap and see what this one is talking about. The one that needs a service. The one that needs a service, when I say get notification, I want to use that service to be able to not do anything in the service. The only thing I'm doing in the service is that I'm getting the information I need to get. And then like getting the user, I pass in the ID, and then I also tell the type of notification I want to get, which I created here. Notification to. This is just, instead of me doing something like this, the type, I can say notification to. That's how I know the kind of gets by user I'm trying to do. And if you guys will notice, I try to as much to avoid typing a string. I try as much as possible typing string, because you can mistakenly do this. If you want to do to, for example, and then you do this can break everything. So what did I do? I created something like so. That's another thing entirely. I created something like this so that I can say services and say notification to. Don't worry about that. This is just what is happening. Now I want you to look at line 34. Line 34 is very important. Now this is the controller. The controller technically is not supposed to do anything. It's just supposed to call the services, and the services should do the thing. But here I've let my controller do one work, which is not bad. By the way, there's no hard and fast rule about these things, but I just want to use the opportunity to create this more explanation for you guys. There's no fast and hard rule to this, that you can't write code in your controller. You can still write a bunch of code here now. Why not? You can write code here. You can write code here. But the more code you write here, right, the more you are giving this guy power. The more code you write here, the more you will not be able to test, because each function are supposed to be testable and do one thing. That one a long story short. So let's cut this one and talk about this line 34. This line 34 is a way for us to get the employee so that we can know the notification that we need to serve. And this employee information is available in the context. Long story. Again, don't worry about this context guy, but the context exists, and the context gets the information from the browser. When you are making a request, it knows where it's coming from. So this guy employee ID is already set, right? Again, later on, I'm going to abstract this guy. I try as much as possible to avoid something like this, but because it's still early stage, I try to, since it's an early stage, we also don't want to create too much magic. When you create too much magic, you get lost in the code, but the fundamental is still the fundamental. So I created this function to be able to extract employee ID from the cookie, because we use cookies to get, the information of who is logging in. If this guy is not available, the employee is not available, it won't get to this point. We're still talking about this guy. Now, don't you think it makes sense for us to do this one inside get by user ID? Like this code we just wrote here, I think it's okay to go and run that code inside here. This should be like the ideal place to go and do the magic, because here you can see that there's a lot of code here, which makes sense. Yeah, this guy is not supposed to be doing much. Like I said, I keep saying that this guy is not supposed to be doing much. It's just supposed to be handler. It's be very easy to read. Oh, get this. If there's error, return this. It's supposed to just be calling services. His work is to be hitting services. Oh, send mail, do this, create this user. Did he go? He gave error. Send this. Just be doing stuff. A controller calls services. They don't actually, write. You don't supposed to. Their own code is not supposed to exist like that. They're not supposed to have their own logic. That's the word. They're not supposed to have like logic like that in them. Okay, so don't you think it's better for this guy to be inside here? Now, that is where this guy comes in. The announcement guy. Let's now see what we did in the announcement. Because for you to do that, you have to sacrifice something. You sacrifice the fact that you can embed services inside here. So look at this guy. Announcement. We are not calling services. It's just on its own. Controller is staying on its own. You don't need anybody help. But we are still going to need services, but not here. So when we say get announcements, look at what we are doing. We are now calling services. We are creating a new instance of service. So you see the two differences between the code now. Let me increase it so that you see the difference between the code. In this code here, this guy is calling services. Service is another service on its own. No, it's not a offshoot of the controller. In this case, we are not creating services. We ourselves have access to the services directly inside NC because we said we need it in our creation of our controller. We said we are needing it. Say we don't bind them together. Say this controller, it must use this service. It has been bounded, right? And that's why it looks like this in the usage, like this NC services, boom. But in this case on top, we didn't bind it. This one is more flexible. Guess what? This guy can go and call another person's service, which is normal. Not like it's normal, but it's okay. It can go and call a service to do something else, which is fine, right? And that's the point of controllers. You need something, you initiate it, you use it. Notice that again, I'm not doing pure coding here. I'm just initiating stuff. Like I need to use service, but of course I need to create an instance of it, which is what I've done. And I'm now saying service.get announcement. Now notice this code, line 34. I'm referencing to this line 34 because I did something similar inside get announcement, which I'm now going to open. So notice that this new announcement needs something, and that's context, because we need the context to be able to get things like, the parameters that are attached to the particular user. If I go to get announcements, I will now see that inside announcements, I can use this to do stuffs that, okay, now it's going to get a little bit confusing, I must agree, but just follow me. I'm now inside the services. Even though I'm not using context, I have used the context on top. This is it here. When I'm creating announcements, I know that when I'm creating announcements, or when I'm creating services, or when I want to get announcements, I know that I need to query by tenant ID. I know it. So therefore, when a new instance of service is created, I need the context to be able to extract the tenant ID and inject it into the DAO. So that's what's happening here. I inject into the DAO so that once the DAO is doing its thing, which is going to do right away here, it's going to know what? The tenant ID. Get that for it. I know it sounds confusing, but once you guys go through the code, you will get it. So if I come here, now guess what? The DAO has access to the tenant ID because it's part of the things that I need. Remember when I was talking about this, I said, you know, you can create parameter, you might need things, you pass it in. I made reference to this, but at that point there was no enough examples that we can use for that scenario. So when you are creating new announcement DAO, you can actually pass tenant ID to it because you need tenants to filter the query that you're going to be returning to the client. Tenants are, I can start. That one is another explanation on its own. Okay, so I have this tenant ID, boom, and I'm going to be using tenant ID across board. Everywhere I'm going to be using tenant ID because tenant ID is what we use to separate each of the tenants. You can't query without tenant ID. That is one of the disadvantages of using this model of multi-tenant application. This is a SaaS application. This is one of the disadvantages. But it is what it is. You have advantages of things and disadvantage of this. So building structure like this gives you like a heads up. You have something like this. Of course, later on we can build something more robust that we require tenant ID, that you can't even go without putting it. You will be forced to pass that parameter. So let me give you an idea now. So if we go back to your announcements and imagine that we did not pass this tenant ID here. In fact, it's not even possible because we've created it as part of it. If you try to create this new announcement DAO without tenant ID, it will not go. So let's say we did not initiate this variable, we didn't use it, and then you try to use DAO like this, it won't go. But the constraint will be like, even though you pass it, did you use it? That's another part here, which you cannot control for now, except you create an abstract to what's the word now? You create another function that will be mandated to call apart from just using where clause, because this is literally writing SQL statements. So instead of you depending on this, you can write something that will say bind to tenants. That way you are conscious of calling it. That's another level on your own. We'll get there. Back to my explanation to what I'm doing. So this one gives you more flexibility, meaning even though we are saying announcements, for now again, this example is still limited. But let's say you want to do more things apart from just announcements from this function. You can stumble to another service, call another service, and you do stuff. So this service, you'll be writing these two different types, but I will recommend that we stick to one type of service calling. So I will recommend we stick to this one. I will recommend we stick to this approach, the one I've used for announcements. This one is, we can convert this. So let's now even use the opportunity to convert this to the announcement section. So let's go. That way even juggle our memory to see what we've gone through, to see if we can get the picture. Okay, the first thing first is that services should not be dependent on the controller. We want to detach it. And one of the ways to do it is by making sure that controller does not require services to function. And we've removed that field from there. So removing that field, when we are creating an instance of it, this becomes an alien. We don't need this. So we remove it altogether. So it makes this simple, right? I'm just creating new stuff. So that said, that means that this service will no longer exist again inside here. Do you see that the AI has even written the code for us? So if you look at the code of the AI, it has detected that we don't have services under NC again. Services is now supposed to be standing on its own and is calling this thing by itself. But let me just switch to it. So let's switch. Okay, let's do it normally. Let's do it locally. So let's not do auto. So I'm going to remove this one. Is not going to be variable again, right? I'm just going to comment it out so that you see the old one versus the new result. So we're going to be having notice, comma, error, return, and we're going to be having services or service dot get. These services or service. Okay, services dot get. Okay, we're going to create new first. You can't just call the function. You have to create new instances of the announcement service. Okay, this is notification service. Once you create the new instance, then you can actually call chain stuff, as in call it in chain, because in the use here, I didn't use chain calling. I first did this first, just to make it easy to understand or read, right? You could as well actually chain them together, which I didn't do. So let me chain it together and show you what I mean. Chaining means that you can do this like so. So this is chaining together, like services.new. When you create new, you now call this guy immediately. So this will make sense if you don't need the services to do other thing again. You're not creating a variable, you're just using it like that. So this is also, but it looks less readable or something. If you're not a pro, you will not understand what's going on here. So for now, let me do it like this. You know, it kind of makes sense. Oh, first of all, you create it. Oh, now you then use it. Okay, so I hope you guys understand that. So I'm going to use the other method here. I create the new instances, and then I call this guy and I pass all these things to it. Boom, I'm done. So this is cool, but we're not yet done, because this code should be executed inside the DOA. The DOA needs to have access to this employee information, because when we are dealing with notification, I want to be able to have employee information. You can do it at so many levels. You can either pass this and execute it inside the get function here services, or do it in the DOA level, any which one you want. So if I gonna need stuffs inside here, so let me see what I have inside here. Now this guy requires DOA. The DOA requirement is nothing. Like I don't require anything in the DOA, but I can enforce it, just as I've enforced the need for a tenant ID. So I can also enforce it. So let me see the implementation. Now here I say I get by ID. That's the employee coming from the, so I can actually say get by ID and not pass it here and use it directly inside here. But that one will spoil. That one will spoil the meaning of this, because now you're not getting by ID again. You're just saying get by the current user or the current employee, or get by the logged in employee, because when you say something like this, it means you want to pass an ID in front. So we're going to change the nomenclature. Let me see. Okay, this is just one single long function, so I'll change it to get by currently logged in employee. That's a long function. So I won't need this ID anymore, because the ID exists within the logged in user, right? So I can delete this. Okay, now this guy now becomes one thing. They are looking for who this guy is, but I'm coming. So if I come back here, of course I can't provide this information in anymore to it. Now the information I want is here. That's the ID. The ID is available inside here, which is inside here. But now we can get to it through the context. We can only get to it through the context, and the context needs to be passed to the services, so that the services will go and use it inside. So you will see the power of the context later. Context do a lot of things, a lot. So instead of me just passing ID, I can pass in the context where everything is available to it, because this notification controller or services will do a lot, not just for this purpose. So you giving it context, you'll be able to do much with it. So I've just given it context, just the way I gave announcement context as well. Let's look at the announcement. So announcement, we gave it context as well, so that we can go and manipulate it later in our other layer of abstraction. Okay, so I have my notification here. I have this inside here, my context, but I didn't require it inside my new notification services. So let's go and require it. I still need this code. That's why I've not deleted it. Can't be copy cracking my head now. So let me come here. So in here, you did not say that you need a context. That's why the context didn't come in as a parameter. So that's why it's just there. So when we put it here, it can then be consumed here. So let's put it here. I won't pass it to go through this guy, right? I don't need it at the data level. I could if I want, but it's a decision I'm making. So I'll say this can be the context, and the context can be so the way the context works is pointer gene context. Okay, then I don't need it inside here, but I need it where? I need it inside the services so that I can use it here. Okay, so just so you know, the services, what is available to you is DOA. That's why you have services S here, and that's why you can do s.doa. Now I want the context to be available to me as well. Even though I pass it here, how can I pass it inside this? To pass it inside this, it needs to also be an option inside our structure. So I'll make it an option as part of the field that I can use in my stuff here. So I can say CX. CX is just a short form for context. So it's a type of what? So this is how we do that. Our tenant can say string. So this is how we did our tenant and say it's an integer. You can pass anything. So I'm, for my own sake now, passing, or for our own example now, I'm passing a context. Or I'm passing a context in this scenario. No comma. Okay, now that you've passed it there, you need to set it. Remember that this one is coming from outside. This is where the user is creating it from. This is outside. It's coming from here. So once it enters here, it will use it to set the class or the services. Yep. So let's go ahead and set it. CX. And let me call this C so that I will not be using the same name like that. Okay. So now whatever you have here is now been inside here and can be accessed inside any of the function. So I can do this one and I comment out. I will now make it available. So I can now pass the employee ID directly. So I'll come here and say, that's the employee ID. Use the utility to go and get this value. Once we get this value, the context, this context is very important. That's why we're passing it around. So how can I get access to the context? The context is inside the service. So I will say s dot, remember what we call it, CX. So I can even call it full context. So you can call it in full, but you have to now, use it here. So once you do that, you can s dot context. And again, you can call this full name as well, service. And why are you calling it service? Because of course you are using the service. That's what you are doing. You can say service, but let me just say SRV. SRV is okay. So you can do, I have to change everything back to SRV, but I hope you guys are getting the picture, sure. So this is now SRV context that this guy is going to make use to extract the employee ID. Now you will ask me, what is this context? Waiting with the context. So let's explain context to you. I think I explained one time to you guys. When you are calling your endpoint announcements and then you write your handler, there is something that goes to the handler. The handler accepts the parameter called, it's not called context, yeah. It's called, it's actually called context. You actually accept the parameter and that parameter is called context. You see this context, it contains everything that is coming from the browser. When you make a post, everything is inside that context. Your cookies, think about it, they are all inside. So that's why that context is key. It's important because if I'm passing it around, it's very important. When you have that context, you can do anything with it. So it's really king. Context is king. Okay, now that I've been able to extract the employee ID, So I'll just call it, let me just call it ID here so that it matches everything here. I don't need to go and be finding and replace. It then fixed that. If I save now, this guy will be implemented. By the way, this get key value is just a helper class. So let me show you what it does. It's just this. Just look at it as this. It's this. But the problem with this is that I need to now do check, right? And again, I need to convert. So I now wrote a function that will say get context key value as integer. Boom. Don't worry, you guys will understand as time goes on. Okay, I'm done with this guy. I have this ID, and I thought you guys were good. Now why did you now do underline? Okay, so I think this one is because of the data type. So it wants uint, and we are giving it int. So you have a what is it called now? I think I'll just be using int. I beg. This conversion. Well, it's good, sure, but since you're in control, just try as much as possible to use one data type. So since I've chosen int, I can just manually go and change this to int everywhere. Like when I mean manually, I'll just go to the function on the inside the DOA, change it to int. But alternative is to convert to uint, which is crazy. Convert. Just maintain one data type, you know, and then you'll be fine. So I'll just convert this guy to int. I'll go and just change it to this one save now even uint 64 kilo day, and this thing will have an effect in the future because let me just convert it to uint 64. Another thing again I can do is that I can say get key value for uint 64. Actually, I can actually do that. What that means is that since I know what is going there, I just gently convert it to the thing it wants and then pass it to it, because you can't be converting each and every one. That's two functions, so just write it once. So let me convert. What's that conversion we save? So I think when you do something like this, you should do I'll just say UID. So we have our conversion there. Then I can do this. And I think you can wrap the whole thing around this guy safe. You can just wrap the whole thing around this guy. There's a place that this thing will not work. So since I've wrapped it around the whole thing, like convert the whole thing to 64, right? Then we are good because this guy return int or uint. Now, well, this one is under code. Just ignore this other code. It just makes the whole thing works. That's that one. So we've been able to convert. Are we done with our conversion? So what we've added is we've added context. Then in our DOA, nothing special. We're not passing anything special. We're not using any tenant stuff. If we're using tenant stuff, this is the best place to add the tenant stuff. I won't really recommend you add tenant to services. Well, if you need to use it, because it's possible that you want to know who tenant it is, you can use it. Yeah. At this point, I don't want to be passing tenant as a parameter. Do you get? I want to pass what really matters. Get user by ID. And notice that there are name changes differences. The name of a service might be different from the name of the DOA. I'll repeat that again. The service name is different from the name of the DOA. Sometimes it can be the same. As you notice when we're doing all these things, we just maintain the same name. What the service will be doing may be different from what the data is trying to do. Okay, so you can see this one now. I say get current logged in employee user because I'm not passing employee ID. But while I'm trying to get it actually, I need to pass the ID. So it makes sense for me to say get from user ID because I might be calling this DOA without these services at some point in the future in another place. This DOA does not belong to exclusively for notification services. I can call it randomly from another function. And the point of this thing is that so that they can easily be tested. You can test, you're supposed to be able to test this get to user ID isolatedly. Pass something to it and test it. That's how your function is supposed to run. And you're supposed to also be able to test this one and everything is intact. So let's move on to we're having an error here. Let's see where the error is coming from. Of course, we changed the name of the service, so you have to update it. Okay, and I think everyone is fine. We are good. So notice what we've been able to, well, I won't say we'll filter this out. I think it's still good to make it 2 lines, I think. Even though I don't mind that 1 line thing. So I'll just say this is service. You can call it anything, right? And then use it here. Okay, this is services. Oh, this is service. Use the service. This is services. New this, right? So what do you think? You can see how elegant this is, slim, and then the whole thing is happening here. Like I said, it looks like a whole lot of work. It's looking like that because you're writing something small. This is a very big application and it's going to grow very fast very soon. So you want everything to be unit tested, or to be able, you need to be able to call things when you need them. You need to be able to call things when you need them. Not that one function get problem like this, everything will break. Just imagine when you are signing up new user, you know that all of them will be calling things. Oh, we need to get user, get this, check if the user exists. Then everybody needs to be able to be calling what they need to be calling, and those things need to work the way they're supposed to work. Okay, I think we've literally talked to what we want to do. So I will just quickly take notes of what I want you guys to work on. So in case I don't end up giving tasks by the time I finish this, I'll try as much as possible to explain the folders or the file name I've created. Like I said, I'll try as much as possible to explain it. We already know the folder explanation. We already get a good glimpse of what it is. I've started making some small changes. Well, I saw those things early enough, but I don't want to confuse you guys. I just want to take it slowly and over time adjust those things. Now, even though most of those errors were made by me, or I just put them together by me, but I knew I was going to change them anyway. Notice that some of the model have their own data types, or when I mean data types, their own data that they push out to the API. What can I use as an example? I think there's one of the, maybe authentication. Yes, I think it has its own data that it pushes out. My point is, any data that is going to the client should be a DTO. I'll repeat that again. Any data that is being sent out should be a DTO. An example of one of those data that is being pushed out is the utility message stuff. So of course I've changed it. So let me show you where that is. So I didn't put it on a plugin. I don't think so. I put it on. Okay, I think I put it on a plugin. So it's an error response. So I put everything under DTO. Anything going out should be a DTO. It's better. It's organized. We don't see API and they say variable again. You know, that's a data type. So it's organized that way. That's one. So let's talk about the naming of these things. What's going on here? Let's start from the top. Now, the way Golang does its packaging system, it's I think you guys need to go and read about it. It's very simple though. It uses the folder structure kind of a way, and I struggled with this for some time, but I've come a piece with it. As in, what I mean, I've already had my piece with it. The way I like to structure folder is based on features. I like to structure folders based on feature, but in Golang it has to be the other way around. You structure folder based on their packages, based on their, not their functionality, based on the structure. I think that's the way I would like to put it. So for example, now API package will be API. So you can imagine how many files will be here. I can guarantee you that this file will grow up to maybe more than 20. So you should be thinking of having more than 20 folders. I'm just trying to contain them, right? So obviously these things will be growing, because I don't want to have a file that will have 1,000 line of codes. It's possible. And the reason why, not that I don't want to have, okay, so let me give you a context to the whole thing. Now, notification, let me use employee. Yeah, let's use employee as an example. Just think about it. How many times would you want to get, or how many form of data, or how many kind of endpoints will you like to call for employee? This is not even a good example because these are just not going to be fat enough. When I mean fat, the function are not going to be having too much, code to write on. The where you will have a lot of lengthy code is, guess what? DAO. That's the data part, and also the services. So you need to be able to straight down hit the code directly, or know where the file to go to directly. When something is wrong with the data, you know where to go to DAO, and then you can simply say, oh, it's the employee I'm going to. Boom, you are there. And the files are not much, or the codes are not much. You quickly jump to where you want to correct things, and then you correct. Right. The same thing with the API. Now imagine this one now that we have, let me even say employee. Now that even only, well, don't mind the fact that I'm zoomed my code to be larger, but just look at the documentation alone. Has taken maybe 10 or 9 line of codes, and you're going to be having more. So you can't have so many things happening inside a particular file. You need to be able to break it down, right? So we're going to be having more files. Sometimes we can merge it. Sometimes you can merge it if they are doing the same thing. Well, let me give you an instance. If you will notice I have org is organizational model. Over time, I'm going to split it. But since I'm starting now, I don't want to be creating files that are empty. So for starters, you will notice that I put everything together. Then over time, I start splitting it up. And that's how I build stuff. I first kind of put everything together. Inside organizational model, we have employee, we have company, we have job type, we have job roles, we have so many things. So when I started, it will be group, and over time, I'll be splitting them off to form their own file. But ultimately, all of them are in the same package, meaning they can be in one file, but it will be a whole, you can't even do that. You can't try that with me, please, because there will be a lot of things inside here. So as it's small like this, it's beautiful. You can easily scroll, look at what you need to do, and then you move on. Okay, yeah, let's move on. So you see all these things happening here now. They're not going to be here anymore. That's the beauty of what we're trying to do, but it's fine, right? I hope you are learning the whole thing. They're going to jump into service. So look at how interesting this part is now. You just get the employee, boom. The next service, whatever they need to do, just go and do their thing. And that's the point. So even this one you did here, which is fine because you are getting from parameter. So there's difference from getting from what the user sent. I think this is a very good example, and I think you need to pay attention to this part. There's a difference from trying to get what's it called, validation from what the user enter versus what's already in the system, like what is already part of that's what's supposed to be part of the process. So there are two different things there. Okay, I'll leave that. Okay, the next part I wanted to go to, okay, I've talked about the file size and everything like that. So let me go to, okay, I'm not going to, so configuration is going to be another thing. I think I'm going to rename this one from DB because I'm doing way more than DB here. I'm doing way more than DB here. What's this file size already? This is going to, like, okay, not too crazy. So I'm doing way more than DB here. This is going to be like something, it can be utility or something, because file name sometimes can be so crazy. In Golang, you will run out of name because you're not really doing anything. So I can just call it config or something. So again, please, let's avoid doing migration like this. I forgot to mention it. You only put, that's why I put this one. You only put anything that this one now is supposed to go out. You only put migration on table that you just created now. Any table you just created now, that's where you need to put migration on. Okay, that's by the way. Let's go to the DAO stuff. Now this is just announcements, and we've barely scratched the surface for announcements. We've barely scratched the surface. This is just two functions. And guess what? We're still going to be writing more functions. So it just makes sense that we're splitting it like this. It makes perfect sense, and I hope you guys will appreciate what is going on here, because that's the way it's done. And it's for a very large system. That's the way it's done. Hope you guys are also looking at documentation for Gin, or rather not Gin, GoRum, because this is purely GoRum, right? GoRM. So it also helps you to know how to call or make your query. Now, DTO is also simple. Notice that everything is in their folders. Like I said, when something is becoming too much, I split it. You know, if it's just small, I put it in the same place. This is the org I'm talking about. Inside organization, we have announcements, we have status, we have, you know, I just lump things up. When I now see that, hey, this guy is getting too big, I put it up in a separate folder. So you can also learn from that, because what that does is that if you are creating folder for everything or file for everything, the whole thing will just be so much, and then you might not be able to quickly track things that you want to quickly hit, right? So for now, just put things in relatively smaller folder that are related, things that are related. And if you think, this one is out of place, you can just, you know, create a new folder for it. So like, for example, now I just created a plugin. That's what I call it. We have this image utility tool as a model, as a table in the database. And what that does is that it allows me to attach any model to a particular image. I will explain. So imagine we have employee and I want to put image to the employee. I don't need to create a field called image. Imagine I have another thing called notice and I want to put an image. I don't need to have image URL. Imagine I have a company and I want to put logo. I don't need to do, well, I did logo URL here. But just think about it. I don't need to put logo URL everywhere. I can just create a central table to do that. And that's where image URL comes in. And it manage a lot of images. That's the power of this. And I was able to also attach it to, let me show you attaching it to announcements. This is announcement. So this announcement, now I've attached it to announcement. Of course, this is the DTO. You get to see the major thing later. So there's a lot of updates that I've done on the system. Okay, and that's why I was saying that I think you guys can start off with managing the smaller things, bringing the structure up while I work on the core things of the application. And then when you warm yourself up with those things, maybe you can now start picking up one or more things into the application. Now let's go to what other thing do we want to look at. We have DTO, middle, nothing serious here yet. Middleware is gonna, you know, come. Well, I'm majorly gonna be writing more of the middleware, so I just updated some things in the middleware. So what is the middleware all about? Middleware is something that happens in the middle of your request to the endpoint. That's what this is all about. And you can see how important the context is. Context, I can't overemphasize how important it is. Is everything, right? Is everything. That's everything. So when anybody have context, he has the power. So what I did here, we use cookies for now. Long story. Don't ask me why. I know I was supposed to be using JWT, but it's a long story. So we use cookies for now. I get the cookie name and I check if there's any nonsense going on. I just say unauthorized and I stop, right? And this is where I eventually get a valid cookie. So at this point, I can now say, I want to see if EID was set. EID means employee ID. When you are signing up, we create a claims, you know, and put this in your JWT and we'll now attach to the cookie. So I check this where I'm doing the setting. By the way, I'm still going to convert this to a global string so that I can just put static string there. And then I will avoid this variable thing. This thing can cause wahala. So, but you guys don't worry about that. I'll do that from my backend. Okay. So this is where you set the value. This is not where you start at the beginning of setting. No, this is where because I'm in the middle of checking the cookie. Check the cookie name, getting the token string. Then once I've gotten token string, I now want to set this into the context, because you can set things to the context and get it later. That's why we did get the other time. So I'm setting the employee ID, I'm setting the tenant ID, I'm setting the user ID, and then later I'll use it within the same app, right? Because this one happened first. I authenticate middleware, and then when I need it, I will now get it. Boom. That's that. So I don't see us doing more. We'll be doing more middleware, but not anytime soon. Middleware is where you also log stuff. You can log what has happened. You can also use it to do rate limiting. You want to limit how many times someone visits a particular thing, you can do rate limiting there. So we have model. I'm gonna be fast now. We have model, we have routes. I introduced route to you guys a couple of days ago, which again you guys have started seeing, you know, how neat things can become. You know, you literally will spend all your time reading codes or in this part, so you need to keep things very tidy and neat. Finally, we have services. Services are going to be next to, after DAO, the next fat guy is gonna be is gonna be the services, because these services are very key. So it does data conversion. This is heaven. If you guys know what this is crazy. Okay, so enough of, okay, let's now talk about the utility. Is just a bunch of things that you use in your program. If I have a function that doesn't fit anywhere, for now I just throw it here for now. So I've not really created a structure for the utility. So these are where a bunch of things that doesn't fit sits. Let's now go to the front end and see what is happening. Let me see, is the server running? I think the server is running. Let me just make, because I've made some alteration, but I don't think they're making any substantial impact. So most of our, there are still some things like this one now, for example, API.response message is supposed to be changed to DTO.response message. Let me change it right now. All our response is supposed to be, anything that goes to the client is supposed to be tagged DTO. So I'm gonna do it auto rename. I'm gonna do auto rename. So this is gonna be DTO, but of course that doesn't fix it automatically. This just fix wherever it sees it, but you also need to go and change where it is inside your class. This is where is that guy again? It's in API, so it should be here. I need to look for it. So it's called this message. So the definition should be like type. So I just search for it. In fact, it has its own file. That's interesting. So this is not supposed to have its own file like this. Yeah, it's a long story. I know we can create another one called param. Param are the one coming from the client, but let's just make everything DTO. So I can delete this or cut it and delete this file, then go to DTO and put it in maybe general or something. Where is general? So let me just put in plugin. So this guy is supposed to be in general. These two guys, they don't fit in plugin at all. So lack of a better place to put it, because this is plugin. There are other things that are plugin. I have another plugin called file. So there are several plugins I have in Office Lime. So this does not really fit in here. So let me just say, let me use the data stuff. So data.dto for now, lack of a better name, package. So it just sits right there. And I think everything should work just fine. It's not working just fine. We'll destroy so many things. So this is because now it's not inside API again. I want to do auto search for something like this. Okay, I think it's just only this file. So let me find and do, okay, we just look for audio file, DTO dot. So that's fixed. I know it's also here as well. DTO.fix, because you have to import it. You're importing it now from another, because it was formerly in his own house. You chased it away. Okay, that is good. You can now do this guy again, make gen, and everything. Well, we still have one. I won't touch this one. I don't have time for this. Let's move on to the next thing. So you still have two guys that are still not DTO compliant. They are still carrying API, but we can do with that later. Let's see what we have in the application and talk to, let's see the code. Do we need to see the UI? Let me see if there's anything to show you guys in the UI. There's quite a lot of stuff that needs to be done. I don't know if you can appreciate what's going on here. You won't be able because most of the things are not still intact yet. Now this is supposed to be the announcement. The announcement is having a different kind of feel. It's supposed to come with images, but long story, those ones are not set here. We already demonstrated this one last time. There's nothing here. This is still old data. Okay, so let's go to the app itself and look at what we have to say inside this part. Have I introduced anything new? One of the things I introduced, which I mentioned briefly, was the fact that you can now specify paths with a defined variable. Remember, anywhere that we have a variable, I actually run from it. I rather you define it and then go and call it when you need it. So there's something I call segments and paths. Segments, and I made those names up, by the way, so it's not a thing. So it's just a variable import, nothing special. So I'll just do an example and then we'll move on to next thing. Okay, yeah, I think I can do something. I will show you guys one thing now. Just remember. So what is this all about? This is what I'm supposed to be typing. Why am I typing all these guys? What's all this all about? I did mention that the reason for this is such that when something changes, I can just go and change it from the implementation. This one is a little bit, I won't say it's complex, but it's like, you know, what's all this? Look at this as a menu system. So the menu system goes like this. We have welcome, you have auth, login, forget, verify email. Imagine you want to create new part, just come and put it here, and then you go and use it when you need it. So we want to invent new thing now that we don't have there. So that was successful, which you did here. I'm going to change it to complete, which I put here. So this is sign up, business, and complete. But this sign up, I think I need to change these to business complete. Although you can have another way you call it, because we're going to see how sign up for employee, and we can still structure this in different ways. So if I want to change this now to so many, I can say this one home. What that means is that business, for business people to sign up. Then I can say employee and do employee sign up. Then I can manage, I don't know if they want to see the same thing, but I can't say complete because I can also come and say complete here for the same, you know, stuff. And that's why I have what I call another nested tree like this, right? Where you can now say, oh, this is business and this one is the home, and the home will map to this, and this is complete. So you can see that it's having a tree-like kind of feature, but I don't want to start changing all the old code in the system because you implemented this already. We've implemented this already somewhere in the system, but even as we have implemented this, you could come and change it from here and it should fit into play if you made use of all these parameters. If you make use of everything, should just fit in. So I'll just undo all these things I've done and just implement the completed thing, and we can go and rest. Okay, so we're gonna call this completed on the success that you did. Again, if we wanted to change the welcome, whatever, maybe it's not called welcome, or we introduce a new page, right? This is where you will put them, depending on the level it is. Look at authentication, for example. I needed to use the root so that I can do this, or I could just do alt/this. The reason why I didn't do it like this is because I needed the way the path system work in this is different. So if you've used it before, you notice that when you have alt here, you can't repeat alt here again. That's why it's like this, and that's where the path comes in. So the path gives you the full path, while the segments just pick the top part. This part is used in the navigation tool, right? If you want to go to authentication now, you know that you have to use the root, which is the auth, and then the login, which is the login. So if you take your mouse over here and it gives you the full one, auth login, take your mouse over here, give you auth forget, like that. So you are building it up here. It looks like a lot of work, but it comes with peace of mind in the end. So those are the things that happen with this level of kind of code where you are creating something sophisticated, right? So it's not just that, oh, let's just write app, let's just, no, these are things that happen. This is what I call engineering. I'm flattering myself. Let's move on. Okay, so now this is where you now, again, I didn't think this should fall in here. This is not really a good part because you are inside you were inside business setup. How did you now come outside to root and successful? I just left this like this. I don't want to fight. That's why I left this one like this. So you can see that I didn't touch it. So if I want to complete this one now, where is the sign up? Yeah, this one here. I'll just create for the sign up here. But of course, I will not call it index. We do the path. And the path is supposed to, while I'm doing that, I want it to point to success, even though this I still need to go and touch what is happening here. But because I don't know what to put, I'll put my success there. And the path should be pointing to where? The path should be pointing to path dot. Okay, why am I not seeing any path here? I've not called any path. That's interesting. Let me just call segments. Segments is a good reason why I've not called paths. So segments dot, of course, we do business setup. Okay, sign up first. Sign up dot complete. So if you take your mouse over it, it gives you that sign up / complete, right? And then you're good to go. Very important. You can't put / here because it will break the routing system. You can only put it for the first level, and that's why you saw that this guy became complex like this. It took me some time to figure out how to land a better balance on those things. So that now forms this one. If in the future you decide I want to do that long thing, if you change this route, of course if you do something like this, just watch now, it's gonna break this guy, which is good because that's the idea. It will force you to go, and if you try to build this now, it won't build. So it will force you to go and implement the right thing. That's the thing I did here now. It's implement and then you move on with your life. So let's go ahead and continue our system. That is the pattern stuff which I think I introduced. And let me now show you I think there's an issue here somewhere. Okay, this one, we'll come to this one later. Let me now show you what you guys will be adding to the system. I will showcase the old system so that you see what are the modules that you guys need to follow or work on. Let's zoom in. Now, what's this one supposed to be doing? This is supposed to be the dashboard for everybody, right? Dashboard, announcement, organogram, my teams, my peers. Now, this part is an administrative access. So this is where we're going to be creating, you guys are going to be creating some stuff here. The company, create the company page, create the employee page. This is just going to be the list just to fetch stuff. I'm going to assign the task later on, not now, but the focus is going to be here while I work on the heavy lifting on all the other parts. So company, and again, that doesn't stop the major work I've given or I've dished out. You still work on those things. But I want to put on a lighter note all these ones. So there are major things coming up here. Job role is already going to be filtered or featured inside company information and what have you. So more things are going to come in. So you say, how do I put this? Of course, you should know by now. You should have gone through all the system to know where all these things are located. So they are just located under component. Where do I have it? Safe. I think I put it under route. No, is that right? layout app, and then I call it sidebar. So the sidebar has some crazy thing going on for it. I've done some authentication, so you can get permission to know who is logged in. These are still advanced stuff for now. So I can know if someone is admin and give the person access to, look at some things, right? We'll still restrict more than this level because this is not access. So we'll limit them from also the routing. So that limit needs to be added in routing, but for now, this is just the bare minimal. So from here, you should be able to add more things like the things that HR needs to be able to accomplish. So let's say locations. If you wanted to change locations, so now you can now do locations, even though this does not exist. Because this way, even if you make the wrong decision of choice in naming, I can just go here and just add locations or update locations to whatever I want it to be. So of course the segment does not exist. So the path is for building the full resolved name, right? That's the idea of the path. So here, come here, I see location segment does not also exist, so I have to go and create it. So if I come to company segments, these are all the things I have. I can say location. So if anything changes in the future, I can come and change it here, and then we are good to go. So we now have this part in the sidebar now as location like this, and that should just be fairly visible like that. Of course, we've not created the part. That's why it's giving us this error. So we've not created it inside the app here, and that's just by copying and pasting and just calling this one location or something. So like I did mention, I will give out the task, and then automatically it just shows. The way this reacting works sometimes is just very funny. The hot reload is very wonderful. I won't get used to React. I don't think I'll get used to it ever since anytime soon. I'm so used to refreshing for a very long time because of my background. But it's also good to see something fresh like this come live. Okay, so we have that, and that's it.